In this session, we'll be covering data validation. So with data validation, you can pretty much validate what types of data are entered into cells, whether it be values, a whole number, decimals, dates, time, the length of a text, a custom format, and we'll give an example of that one, and list. So let's go right into it. To get into the data validation feature, we go to the Data tab, or then go into the Data Tools and go ahead and click Data Validation. Another way to go into it is use the keyboard shortcut Alt DL. So Alt D, we can see the office tips come up, D, and then L. That'll bring us into the same window. I like using this one because it's a lot quicker. So let's go into the any value. There really isn't a lot of usage for the any value unless you just want to put an input message or an error alert. So the input message, we may title this initial input, and so maybe you can just use this for kind of informational informational purposes. So let's say we use the input message, please input a number or name, and then if there's an error, you can put some kind of error alert. You didn't do this correctly. Click OK. And of course, there's not too much error alerts because you can pretty much put anything in here. But at least we get this little screen tip that asks to input something. Now the whole number, escape, we'll go back to the data validation window. For the whole number, let's say we want to have a number entered from 1 to 10. Maybe we're doing it like a top 10. As you can see here, there's different data attributes you can assign for those numbers. They can be between a certain number, not equal to a certain number. But in our case, in our example, we'll just use, let's say, minimum of 1 and a maximum of 10. And you can also put input messages and error alerts here. Now let's say that we can put input message here, please input number between 1 and 10, and if they don't, we'll give this little icon and we'll say number must be between 1 and 10. Click OK. Let's say we entered number 3, that should be OK. But let's say we enter the number 11. What do we get? We're going to get our little error window here, and it's going to ask us to try. So that gives us that little example of the whole number validation. Let's give that a 10 to get out of that. So a decimal, Alt DL, a decimal basically, if we want to have just decimal figures in there, and let's say we want a minimum of 0.01 to a maximum of 0.99. Very similar to the whole number. Maybe in this instance I can just say also, please enter value between 0.01 and 0.99. Oops, 99. Let's copy this so I can put in my error alert. Enter value between 0.01 and 0.99. Click OK. If I enter 0.5, that should be OK. If I enter 1, I should get an error. And there goes my error. Alright, let's go back to 0.5. Now for a date, let's say we only want a value of a date in here. And basically we can have a date here. You can see I've already done this, and this just gives the remnants of the last time I put date validation here. So let's just say we only wanted a date between January 1st, 2010 and an end date of 12/31/2010. So basically, if of course I put 1/1-2010, that should be okay. But if I put 1/1/2011 next year, it's going to give me an error. So there's the example for a date. Now for time, Alt DL, very similar. We can go greater than, equal than, or between. I like to use between, and you can see in this example, maybe I won't only want to let the values between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. be entered here. So for example, if I put 8:30 a.m., that works, but maybe something like 3 p.m. that's not going to work. Or if we go with military time, would be the same as 15:30, that's not going to work. So it knows that if we go back to Alt-L, it knows that between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. that is the validation settings we want. For the text length data validation, let's say maybe we only want to have certain number of values in there. Maybe we have a yes no type of scenario, or we only want to have a minimum of up to maximum of up to three characters in there. So that gives us that option too. Well, we can type, if we maybe have something like a yes no, or we can type no or yes, that's fine, but maybe is not going to work. That's going to give us an error window. Now at custom, we can add formulas in here. So we go back to Alt-DL, and let's say we have a custom, and I got this particular example off contextures.com. It's a really cool website about Excel tips. And let's say we want to have values in here where there's no spaces before or after the text. So that'd be done with the cell formula, where we want the formula of the cell B14 to equal the trim. Trim is a function in Excel that trims off excess spaces before or after the word, not spaces in between words, but before or after the word. And I'm going to click OK. Let's say I type hello without a space, that would work. But if I type hello with a space, that's going to give me an error. So let's go back now. Let's go to our last one here, the list feature. This is probably one of the most handy ones. And if we go to list, what it does is it lets us define a list of drop downs that we can use for data validation. So let's say, for example, we're going to pre-populate it with just a list of 3 potential responses that people can use: yes, no, maybe, or maybe just non-applicable. You click OK, and what we see here is a drop down, and we've got those options. Now if we want to have other options to choose from, and we have a whole long list and we don't want to type it in there, we can use it here. Let's say, for example, we have different colors: blue, red, yellow, green, black, brown, gray. Now let's say, for example, we'll go Alt-DL. We change this, and we will set it to equal to these cells, A20 to A26. Click OK, and what you see here is now you've got a drop down of each of the different selections or choices. So here's an example of data validation, the data validation feature in Excel. Very nice and handy feature. Hope this helps. Thanks for watching.